Good evening, everyone. And you know what day it is? Friday evening. Yay, we are here again tonight with doctor's orders. I am super excited about the topic tonight because this particular disease impacts several people that are very close to me that I love. We'll be talking about autoimmune disease. But for those who may be joining or seeing us for the first time, this is Doctor's Orders, where we come together every Friday night and we talk about trending health topics. And we are a part of a healthy living community known as the Juice Plus community. So I'm just going to turn it over to Carla and I'm going to let her do what she does. Coach Carla Joy. Hey.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be part of this family and to have my dear friend Ruth Presley introduce me because she's the hostess with the mostest. We've been doing this, I think we're heading close to 10 years. But one of these days, I'm going to research this and find out for sure. But here's the thing. You may know my story, but you may also know someone who's been suffering from Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, MS, multiple sclerosis, vitiligo, lupus, also known as SLE, pemphigus, arthritis, celiac disease, or type 1 diabetes. What do all of these have in common? They're actually known as autoimmune diseases. And before we talk about getting hope and help for autoimmune diseases, I want to tell you why I'm here. You know, several years ago, I discovered that I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. Did that ever happen to you? I thought I was the healthiest person I knew, and yet I ended up with a diagnosis of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and prediabetes. I'm telling you, it brought my life to a screeching halt. The plans I had about continuing my education, the hope I had for moving forward in my life, they all were put on pause as I panicked and then I prayed. You see, I had walked the halls of DC hospitals and hospitals in different parts of the country, and even in the Caribbean, with physicians. And a lot of the patients felt better, but they didn't get better. So I didn't want to be managed. I wanted a cure. But at that time, I didn't know of people who actually recovered from the diagnoses that were facing me. So I had to go on a journey. I dragged a couple of my friends along. I spoke with our hostess, Ruth Presley, because she had made tremendous strides on her health journey because of some of the decisions she'd made, some of the lifestyle changes she had made. And I wanted to know if it was going to be able to work for me. Then my goddaughter, Jillian, she's my favorite physical therapist, introduced me to two videos. One was the documentary Forks Over Knives, and the other was a lecture by Dr. Michael Greger, in which he went through, it's called Uprooting the Cause of Disease. He went through the 15 most common causes of death in the United States, according to the CDC. And he showed the research that indicated that I was on the right path, that nutrition could make a difference. So I made some lifestyle changes. I had to try it for myself, and I started to get better. Within a year being introduced to those changes and to the added concentrated fruits and vegetables and capsules that we'll talk a little bit more about later on, my doctor gave me a clean bill of health. No more high blood pressure, no more high cholesterol, no more prediabetes. Now, I actually participated with this community and found out I got educated. I got educated on nutrition. So I found out that there are actually six pillars of health. And I came up with my own signature presentation of that. And if you've heard me speak before, you know about those six pillars of health. And I incorporated all of them into my life. And what I discovered was that clean bill of health it wasn't just temporary. Once I stuck with the 6 pillars of health, my health stayed good. But when I deviated, then things happen. And I'm sharing this story with you because I want you to know that even though I myself may not have suffered the way your friend who has Crohn's or pemphigus or celiac disease has, I too suffered with digestive issues, with arthritic pains, with skin challenges, with I had to have surgeries and treatments. So we're all facing these challenges, and so many of them can be impacted by changing our lifestyle. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine lists some of these same pillars of health, and we're going to talk about how they can be helpful to you and your friends and family and how you can make a difference. So let's dive in to autoimmune diseases. What are they? Well, our body has defense systems. Our skin is a defense system. Our digestive system is also part of our defense system. And we have blood cells in our body that actually are part of an active defense system that we call the immune system. There are parts of the body that are focused on defending ourselves against invasions, or if something goes wrong with our cells, the white blood cells are charged with taking them out, getting rid of them, so that the rest of the body can continue living healthily. So there are many different types. Depending on who you speak with, they can list them as 80 to 100 different types of autoimmune diseases. But the bottom line, what is the through line for all of them, whether you're talking about rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, type 1 diabetes, ulcerative colitis, is that the immune system, which is charged with fighting against invasions of bacteria or viruses or worms, or cleaning up damaged cells, start acting out of order and actually start damaging healthy normal cells. So it's called autoimmune. It's because your own body is damaging its own cells. So, for example, in the case of type 1 diabetes, the research suggests very, very strongly that exposure to milk proteins, proteins are not supposed to cross the gut blood barrier whole. They're supposed to be broken down into their smallest units, amino acids. But in some susceptible children, the gut is not very secure, and whole proteins cross that barrier, and the immune system recognizes these are foreign proteins. And then they attack them. They produce antibodies to try to cause them to clump together so that the kidneys and the liver can work together to get rid of them. And the cells, the white cells themselves, can chew them up. But they are already producing these antibodies against these proteins. But now these antibodies turn around and attack our actual pancreas. There are cells in the pancreas that produce a hormone called insulin. And the antibodies that were produced against the foreign milk protein now attack the walls of the pancreatic cells. So that's just one example of the way autoimmune diseases work. It's when the immune systems, whether it's the immune system cells, whether it's the cells in the gut, and now we know that the gut cells actually make up maybe as much as 50% of our immune system, whether it's the cells in the gut or the white blood cells, they are producing chemicals that are damaging our own cells. So whether it's the cells of the joint, the cells of the pancreas, the cells in the eye, the cells in the nervous system, all of these are being attacked. So what can we do? Well, because we have a mandate to protect our bodies, we actually have a lot of information that is very, very helpful. In fact, medications have been developed in an attempt to support us if we have signs and symptoms of an autoimmune disease. One of these drugs that has been developed are corticosteroids. Their role is to reduce the inflammation that is caused when there's an autoimmune reaction, but they lead to side effects like weight gain and bone thinning. Another common drug was methotrexate that suppresses the immune system, but it can cause liver toxicity and gastrointestinal issues. More modern drugs are known as biologics. You may have heard of a drug called infliximab. This is an antibody that binds to one of the inflammatory markers. It's called TNF alpha. We don't have to know about that. That's not going to be on the test. But by binding to that marker, it helps reduce the signs of inflammation. But you'll notice, and it may come in many different names, but it does have side effects, and a lot of these drugs have a high cost. We're talking about somewhere in the vicinity of $35,000 to $40,000 a year. So they're quite expensive. And what they're doing is reducing the inflammation from the outside. But they haven't got to the cause. I mean, if inflammation is taking place because of some sort of the cells going rogue and attacking our body, then that inflammation, if we can bring it down, it should reduce the symptoms. But we are still not getting at the cause. Why don't we stop the cause? So you may be asking, as I did, well, what's the cause? Dr. Neil Barnard, in his the Exam Room podcast, makes a very good point. And that point is that the cells of the immune system don't just suddenly spontaneously misbehave. There could be a genetic component, but they found that even though there may be a genetic component, when they did twin studies, they found that even twins raised in different environments did not all get the autoimmune conditions. So there may be a genetic component, but there seems to be an environmental component. And so he mentioned some triggers. Now, this would be a good time for you to get out your pen and paper so that you can write down some of these triggers. He made an actual list in his book, and I'm going to share that list with you. And it's going to become very important because we don't want just to give you the information about the origin. We also want to give you hope and help for how you can participate in the healing process of your body if you have an autoimmune condition. So he said the trigger foods were number one, dairy products. It is known that the fat in dairy, because dairy products tend to be high in fat, the fat in dairy products can increase inflammation. But in terms of the autoimmune conditions, it seems as though it's the proteins, even more than the hormones in the milk products, that trigger the autoimmune condition. So it's the proteins in dairy more than the hormones or even the fat or the sugar, because they did research to see if the fat or the sugar were implicated in triggering autoimmune conditions. Number two on the list was don't don't shoot the messenger, okay? Number two on the list was chocolate. And Dr. Barnard said that it's possible that the chocolate was probably a trigger because the chocolate was not coming by itself. It was usually combined with milk. The third trigger was eggs. The fourth was citrus fruits. And he said that citrus fruits are harmless to most people, but it was seen as a trigger in the research. And one, two, three, four. Number five was animal products. So whether it was fish or fowl or beef or turkey or lamb, it was animal products, which were the fifth trigger. Trigger number six was wheat. And it appears that it's the gluten in the wheat, and therefore brow foods, barley, rye, oats, and wheat would be contain gluten. So that was, they were included as triggers. And finally, he said nuts. Now, there was a final group, and he said that some people also were triggered by things like tomatoes, corn, apples, onions, and bananas. But these were the lowest on the list. So now we know, wait a minute, it's not something that you did, it's not your genes, it is that there are foods that we eat and that we may be eating too much of that could be a trigger that causes our cells to grow rogue. So, based on Dr. Neil Barnard's research and Dr. Michael Greger, you can find his work at the nutritionfacts.org site. You can just type in autoimmune conditions and you can listen to some of his explanations. But based on both the information from both of these medical doctors, if you change your eating, you can change the frequency of flare ups, you can change the inflammatory markers, and you can change your signs and symptoms. So, listen, this is huge. This gives you hope. You don't have to feel like a helpless victim anymore. You don't have to feel helpless. I know so many people have been diagnosed with autoimmune conditions and they've been to doctor after doctor after doctor, to rheumatologists, endocrinologists, and different specialists, surgeons, different specialists in an attempt to, number one, find out what's wrong, and number two, to get help. Now you know that there's a list of foods that you can go. I hope you wrote them down: dairy, chocolate, eggs, citrus, any type of animal products, wheat, nuts. And then at the bottom, tomatoes, corn, apples, onions, and bananas. So now that we know that there's a trigger, now that we know that it's not just genetics, what can we do? Well, Dr. Barnard was asked the same question. And he said that in the presence of consultation with our medical doctors, that we can try something called an elimination diet. You would eliminate all of the triggers, and you do that for 1 or 2 weeks. So you'd go without eating dairy, chocolate, eggs, citrus, animal products of any kind, wheat, nuts, tomatoes, corn, apples, onions, or bananas for about 2 weeks. So you could still eat rice and other vegetables. You could still eat other fruit that weren't in that list. But you do that for about 1 to 2 weeks. Now, the amazing thing is that if you did that, many people who participated in the elimination diet, they began to feel relief, and they began to notice a decrease in outbreaks and recurrences. But anyway, now it's the second phase, and that is replace some of these potential triggers for 2 or 3 days. So you're going to start at the bottom of the list. So you can start with either the tomatoes, the corn, the apples, the onions, or the bananas. And you make a real challenge. So you don't just eat one banana, you eat 2 or 3 bananas for 2 or 3 days and see if there's any reaction or reoccurrence of your symptoms. And so you provide that real challenge for about 2 or 3 days, and then you move on to the next one. So you start at the bottom: tomatoes, corn, apples, onions. He recommended you start with the bananas. And then after you've added those back and there's still no symptoms, then you can try the nuts, and then you can try the wheat. Now, people who have celiac disease, we know, and they know, their physicians know, that they should not be eating any products that have gluten. So they wouldn't try that. And he said that you may discover that there are more than one trigger in your eating plan. You might discover that it's nuts, or you might discover that it's citrus, or you might discover that it was eggs. His recommendation: do not add back the meat, the eggs, or the dairy. His recommendation: do not add back the meat, the eggs, or the dairy. Now, so many people have suffered so much from autoimmune conditions that this will be like a breath of fresh air. That there's, number one, there are known triggers. Number two, they can do an elimination diet under the supervision of their physicians. And number three, we can also support you with our Juice Plus products. If you already have an autoimmune disease, then the first thing Dr. Barnard recommends is stay away from all animal products, remove gluten, try the self elimination, remove peanuts. One of my mentors did some work on the history of peanut allergies, and it seems that once peanut oil was added to vaccinations, that there was a sudden increase in the number of peanut allergies. So, and peanut allergies, we know, can be extremely dangerous. So if you have peanut allergy or suspect that you have a peanut allergy, please stay away from them. And some people asked about whole ground spices like turmeric. He said, don't use the extracts. Well, sorry, McGregor, Dr. Greger said, don't use the extracts. Use the whole ground spices. They not extracts. So I just dropped a little hint. How can we help you on this journey? Well, I'm glad you asked. As you know, the Juice Plus company works with farmers to produce fruits and vegetables that are grown in pristine conditions. They also they don't use for herbicides or pesticides. They wait until the fruit are fully ripe, fruits and vegetables and berries, and then they pick them at the peak of ripeness. As soon as possible, flash freeze them to lock in all the nutrients, crush them into powders, and place them in either capsules, gummies, or now the easily accessible superfood that you can just add to your water. And you can also use the complete shake in chocolate or vanilla. And you can also use and we also have the Luminate as a refreshing pick-me-up drink. Now, one of the things that people who have autoimmune conditions very often suffer from, because they are so afraid of eating, they tend not to eat enough. But having access to the superfood, to the complete shakes, that can help them get the macronutrients and the micronutrients that their body needs to support this healing process. Because think of it like knocking yourself with your hand. I mean, even if I did this on a regular basis or consistently, I'd end up with a bruise, right? That's just the body producing inflammation in response to the injury I'm causing to promote healing. If I keep doing it, then the healing can't take place. And you could develop something, this is just an analogy, you can develop a chronic condition, a chronic bruise, like chronic inflammation. But to get that to heal, you have to stop inflicting the damage. And so, as we stop eating the foods that trigger autoimmune conditions, our body will automatically try to heal. But to do that, it needs macronutrients and micronutrients. And that's what the superfood, the Juice Plus Complete Shake, can help give the body, support the body in that process of healing. Now, I hope that the information that we've shared with you today helped you understand, number one, autoimmune conditions, it's not your fault. It's that the food that we eat is triggering problems with our immune system. Number two, there is a cause, so there is a solution. We can remove the triggers and our bodies will begin to heal. And number three, we can support our bodies while they heal by giving them top quality nutrition through the complete shake, the Juice Plus Superfood, the capsules, and the chewables, and the refreshing Pick Me Up Luminate. Now, if you have questions about in any of the information that I've shared with you today, please don't hesitate to ask the person who invited you to this live session or to the video. I'd like to close by referring to our main scripture for this series, 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. So, the information that we've shared today, I hope that gives you hope, that gives you strategies, and that gives you support so that you can begin your journey. And if not you, maybe someone you know and love. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'd like my friends to unmute and share with me what we say every Friday evening. We remind people that across the country and around the world, doctors united are united by this one thing. They say,
Eat
Eat
more
more
fruits
fruits
and
and
veggies.
vegetables.
eat more fruits and vegetables. Join us next time. This is Coach Carla Joy saying thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.